Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Easy English Podcast with Emily and Michael.
Hey guys, we're really happy you're here with us today.
I hope your day is going well so far.
And today, we're talking about something that sounds simple, but can feel very difficult in real life.
Yes, today we're talking about learning to say no.
Which is a very important topic,
Definitely.
because saying no is a small word, but emotionally, it can feel very big.
That's so true.
I think a lot of people know they should say no more often.
Yes,
But knowing that and actually doing it are two very different things.
exactly.
So maybe we should start with a simple question. Why is it so hard to say no?
For me, I think one reason is that many people don't want to disappoint others.
That's a big one.
They want to be kind, helpful, easy to be around, and liked.
Yes, and saying no can feel like the opposite of all those things.
Exactly.
But I also think people are afraid of conflict.
Definitely.
Sometimes it's not even about the request itself.
Right.
It's about the emotional discomfort around the moment.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
You imagine the other person being upset, disappointed, annoyed, or thinking badly of you.
Yes. And then the no starts feeling much heavier than it really is.
Exactly.
Do you think you're good at saying no?
Better than before.
That sounds honest.
It is.
What changed?
I think I realized that saying yes when I really mean no creates a different kind of problem.
That's such a good point.
At first, yes can feel easier.
Yes.
You avoid the awkward moment.
You avoid the discomfort.
You look kind.
And helpful.
But later, you often feel tired, resentful, stressed, or trapped.
Exactly. I think that's the hidden cost of saying yes too often.
Very true.
What about you? Are you good at saying no? I think I'm better than I used to be, but I still feel the emotional difficulty sometimes.
That sounds very real.
Because I don't like making people feel bad.
Same.
I like harmony.
Yes, that sounds very Emily.
I know.
But I think one big lesson in adult life is this. Protecting peace sometimes means disappointing people a little.
Wow. Yes.
Not in a cruel way,
No.
just in a normal, healthy human way.
I completely agree. I think many people learn to be nice before they learn to have boundaries.
That is such a strong sentence.
Thank you. It's very true, though, especially when people are younger.
Yes, they often learn that being good means being available.
Exactly.
Being easy, helpful, flexible, always saying yes.
And later they realize that this can become unhealthy.
Definitely.
Because if you always say yes to keep everyone comfortable, you slowly become uncomfortable yourself.
That's such a good way to say it.
Thank you.
I think one of the biggest problems is that many people connect no with guilt.
Yes, that's a huge part of it.
They say no, and then they immediately feel like a bad person,
Exactly.
even if the no was completely reasonable.
Yes. That's what makes it so difficult.
I think some people believe that if someone is unhappy with their boundary, then the boundary must be wrong.
That's such an important point.
But that's not true.
No. Someone else's disappointment does not automatically mean you did something wrong.
Exactly.
I think that idea changes everything.
Me too.
Because if you don't understand that, then every no feels dangerous.
Yes, every no feels like a moral problem.
Exactly.
Do you think people confuse kindness with overgiving?
Definitely.
Same.
Real kindness is healthy.
Yes,
But overgiving can come from fear.
that's very true.
Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of not being liked, fear of being seen as selfish.
I think that happens all the time.
Me too.
And the difficult part was that overgiving often looks good from the outside.
Yes, it can look generous, warm, easy, supportive,
But inside, the person may feel very tired,
or invisible,
or resentful.
or emotionally crowded.
Exactly.
I think one sign that you need to say no more often is when yes starts feeling heavy.
Wow. I love that.
I mean it.
That's such a useful sign.
If yes feels warm and genuine, that's one thing.
Yes.
But if yes feels tight, forced, pressured, or false, then something is important there.
I completely agree. Let's talk about the kinds of situations where people struggle to say no.
Good idea.
I think social situations are a big one.
Definitely.
Being invited somewhere when you're tired,
Yes.
being asked to join something when you really need rest,
That's very real.
or saying yes to plans because you feel guilty saying no, and then feeling bad the whole day.
I think so many people know that feeling.
Same.
I also think work is a big area.
Absolutely.
Extra tasks, extra time, last-minute requests, people asking for more than you realistically have energy for.
Yes, work can make boundaries very difficult, especially for people who want to be seen as reliable.
That's such a good point.
Sometimes people are not saying yes because they truly want to.
Right.
They're saying yes because they want to be respected, valued, or safe.
Exactly. I think another hard area is emotional support.
What do you mean?
I mean, when people come to you with their emotions, problems, stress, or drama.
Oh, yes. That is a big one.
Because it's not always easy to say, I care about you, but I don't have the energy for this right now.
That's so true.
Especially if you are a caring person.
Definitely.
But I think emotional boundaries are very important.
Me too.
You can care about someone and still need space.
That's such an important sentence.
I really believe that.
I think many people feel that saying no means they don't care.
Yes. And that's not true.
Not at all.
Sometimes, saying no is not rejection. It's honesty.
Wow, yes.
And honest relationships are healthier than fake availability.
That's really strong.
Thank you.
I also think learning to say no is part of growing up emotionally.
Definitely.
Because children often want approval more than boundaries.
Yes. That makes sense.
But adult life slowly teaches you that approval is not enough to build a healthy life.
Exactly.
You also need limits.
And self-respect.
And time to recover.
And energy for your real priorities.
Yes, all of that.
I think one of the hardest things is saying no without giving a huge explanation.
Oh, yes.
That's so hard for many people.
Including me, sometimes.
Same.
I think many people feel they need to build a full legal case every time they say no.
That's such a good description.
Like, here are the 7 reasons, the full background, the emotional history, the weather report, and my internal state.
Exactly.
Just to say no to one simple thing.
I think that often happens because people are trying to reduce guilt.
That makes sense.
If they explain enough, they hope the other person will approve the no.
Yes, but sometimes a simple no is healthier.
Definitely.
Like, I can't this time.
Or, I'm not available that day.
Or, I need some rest tonight.
Or, I can't take that on right now.
Exactly.
I think short, honest boundaries are often stronger than long, guilty boundaries.
Wow, that is very true.
Thank you.
I think Tone matters a lot too.
Definitely.
A no can be calm, kind, and respectful.
Yes, it doesn't need to be cold.
That's such an important point.
Some people are afraid that if they say no, they must become hard or unfriendly.
But that's not true.
Not at all.
You can be warm and still be clear.
Exactly.
I think that's the best combination.
Me too. By the way, if you enjoy listening to Simple English with us, don't forget to subscribe to Easy English Podcast with Emily and Michael.
And if you think this episode can help a friend with English, feel free to share it with them.
We'd really appreciate that.
Okay, let's keep going.
Let's talk about guilt a little more, because I think guilt is one of the biggest reasons people struggle with no.
Definitely.
Do you think guilt always means something is wrong?
No, I really don't.
Same.
I think guilt sometimes just means you are doing something new and emotionally uncomfortable.
That's such a good point.
Especially if you are used to saying yes all the time.
Yes, then saying no feels almost unnatural at first.
Exactly.
Your body reacts like you are doing something bad, even when you are just creating a normal boundary.
That's very real.
I think that's why practice matters.
Definitely.
Because boundaries can feel very strange at first.
And more normal later.
Yes, the nervous system learns.
I love that.
I think people need to understand that guilt is not always a signal to go back.
Yes. Sometimes it's just a sign that you're leaving an unhealthy pattern.
That is such an important sentence.
Thank you.
I think people also forget that every yes is also a no to something else.
Wow. Yes.
If I say yes to something I don't really have energy for, I may be saying no to rest, peace, sleep, or time for myself.
That's a huge insight.
I think so too.
Because people often look only at the request in front of them,
Yes,
but they forget the cost on the other side.
exactly.
So maybe learning to say no is also learning to see the full picture.
Definitely.
Not only the discomfort of the moment.
But also the effect on your life, your energy, and your emotional state.
Yes. That's such a mature way to think.
Thank you.
Do you think some people are more likely to struggle with no than others?
Definitely.
Why?
I think sensitive people often struggle more.
That makes sense.
People who feel others strongly. People who want harmony. People who notice emotional changes quickly.
Yes, they often pick up disappointment very fast.
Exactly. And because they feel it so strongly, they try to avoid it.
That's very real.
I also think people who grew up with a lot of pressure to be good, easy, or helpful may struggle more.
Yes, that's a big one.
If love or approval felt connected to pleasing people, boundaries can feel very risky later.
That's such a deep point.
I think it matters a lot.
Me too. I also think some people say yes because they are afraid of missing out.
Oh yes, that's another big one.
They don't want to miss the event, the opportunity, the connection, the possibility.
Yes, even when they're exhausted.
Exactly.
And then they go somewhere they didn't really want to go, and the whole time they wish they were at home.
That's so relatable.
I think one good question is, if there were no guilt, what would I choose?
Wow, that's really useful.
I think so too.
Because guilt makes things very confusing.
Yes, it hides the real desire.
Exactly.
Sometimes the honest answer is, I need rest.
Or I don't actually want this.
Or I want something smaller, not the full plan.
That's such a good point.
I think people often forget that no is not the only option. Sometimes there is also a smaller yes.
I love that.
Like what?
Maybe not dinner, but a short coffee. Maybe not the whole weekend, but one evening.
Exactly.
Maybe not right now, but next week.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
I think flexibility is helpful, but only when it's honest.
Definitely. Let's talk about saying no to yourself.
That's interesting.
I think that matters too.
In what way?
I mean, saying no to habits, impulses, or patterns that don't actually help you.
Oh, yes, that's important.
Saying no to staying up too late again.
Yes,
Saying no to checking your phone one more time.
definitely.
Saying no to overfilling the day.
Or saying no to your own impossible expectations.
That's such a big one.
I think a lot of people need to say no to inner pressure, not only outer requests.
I completely agree. Sometimes the loudest voice asking too much is your own.
Wow, that is very true.
I think boundaries are not only social, they are internal too.
Yes, that's a beautiful way to say it.
Thank you.
I think learning to say no is really about protecting what matters.
I love that.
Your energy, your time, your peace, your focus, your health.
Yes. And maybe your honesty too.
Definitely your honesty.
Because every false yes hurts honesty a little.
That's such a strong line. It's true, though.
Me too.
Do you think people respect you less when you say no?
Healthy people usually don't.
That's a very good answer.
I think respectful people may be disappointed sometimes, but they can still respect the boundary.
Yes.
People who only like you when you always say yes are showing you something important.
Wow. Yes.
That may not be real respect.
That's a very mature point.
I think so too.
I also think saying no gets easier when your life becomes fuller and more intentional.
That makes sense.
Because then you can feel more clearly what you are protecting.
Yes. If I know what I need, what matters, and what costs me energy, then no becomes more logical.
Exactly.
So, maybe one part of learning to say no is learning yourself better.
I think that's a huge part of it.
What drains you? What supports you? What matters? What doesn't? What kind of pace feels healthy for you?
Those questions change everything.
I agree.
So, if someone listening says, I know I need better boundaries, but I still can't say no, where should they start?
I would say start small.
Good answer.
Don't begin with the hardest person and the hardest situation in your life.
That makes a lot of sense.
Start with something smaller. A simple plan you don't want. A small request you don't have energy for. A little moment where you can practice a calm no.
I really like that.
What would you say?
I would say practice saying no without over-explaining.
That's such a good one.
Short, calm, kind. That's enough.
Yes, I love that.
Like, I can't this time.
Or, I'm not available tonight.
Or, I don't have the energy for that right now.
Exactly.
I think people need to hear this more. A boundary does not need a performance.
Wow. Yes.
It just needs honesty.
That's very strong.
Thank you.
I would also say this. Expect a little discomfort at first. And don't treat that discomfort like proof that you did something wrong.
That is such a helpful sentence.
I think it matters a lot.
Me too.
So, what's one area where you want to be better at saying no?
Plans when I know I really need rest.
That's a very good one.
What about you?
Extra emotional responsibility that isn't really mine to carry.
Wow, that's a strong answer.
I think it's an important one for me.
I can understand that.
I want to care without carrying everything.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So, maybe the message of this episode is simple.
Saying no does not make you mean.
It can make you clearer, healthier, and more honest.
A good no protects energy,
A good no protects peace.
and a good no often makes room for a more honest yes. Exactly. So that was our conversation about learning to say no.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Easy English Podcast with Emily and Michael.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel and share it with a friend who is learning English too.
We'd really appreciate that.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.